My father left my mom for his secretary. And now my stepmother tries to control me and ruin my life. That's why I decided she had no place in my home. My dad was in his 50s when he divorced my mom because he fell for another woman. Yes, you heard that right. Now my dad is 54, and my mom is 52. 4 years ago he was promoted to the position of company director after working there for 25 years. It was a major achievement, and our whole family was proud of him. He had started as a simple intern and worked his way up. My mom, on the other hand, owns her own advertising firm. Her company may not be as large as my father's, but she's in charge there. So yeah, I grew up in a well-off family. I'm 26, a successful graphic designer, a freelancer, and I'm about to start my own business. Wish me luck. I owe it all to my mom because she was in this field from the very beginning of the digital era and introduced me to freelancing at an early age. I started doing graphic design as a teenager, and by the time I graduated from high school I was already making around $1,000 a week. I wouldn't say my parents had a perfect marriage because in the last few years I barely saw them together. They were both too focused on their careers and personal lives to pay attention to each other. But it wasn't always like that. When I was a kid, my parents were the best team you could imagine. They understood each other perfectly, especially when it came to work. They were ambitious, cheerful, and fun-loving people. I had a happy childhood because of them. When I went to college, I noticed that they were growing apart and leading separate lives. They never argued or spoke badly about each other, so I thought it was just a natural process. People tend to focus more on themselves as they get older, but later I realized the real reason. My dad started losing interest in my mom when she went through certain age-related changes. He complained that her mood had become unpredictable, and eventually he found comfort in his secretary. Their relationship started even before his promotion was official. Once he became a director, he took their affair more seriously. When my mom found out, she simply wished him luck and let him go without unnecessary drama. That's one of the reasons I respect her so much. She's the strongest and most dignified woman I've ever known. But before she let him go, she made sure to keep the house we lived in and secured her fair share of their joint assets. She wasn't after his money. They built their wealth together, and she wasn't about to let someone else benefit from her hard work. After the divorce, my dad was left with very little, just his car and some savings, which he spent generously on his new partner. The divorce went smoothly because my dad didn't argue with my mom's conditions. He knew that fighting with her was pointless. Thankfully, I was already living on my own at that time. During college, I rented a nice 2-bedroom apartment and enjoyed my independence. I was making enough from freelancing to cover rent and expenses, so why not? I didn't want to take sides. I loved both of my parents and understood their perspectives. Of course, I was closer to my mom, but I still maintained a good relationship with my dad and respected him for how he had supported my mom's career in the past. After the divorce, my dad and his new partner moved into a rental apartment. His company had strict policies against workplace relationships. He wanted to keep their affair a secret until they figured things out, but his partner was too excited about her lucky catch and couldn't resist bragging to her friends. The rumors spread quickly, and eventually both of them got fired. Yes, my dad lost his director position because of this relationship. In the end, my mom had the last laugh. A few months ago, I bought a luxurious 3-bedroom penthouse. Then last week, my dad came to me with a request. He wanted to move in with me along with Linda, his fiancée. She's 29 and they're getting married next month. My dad is currently unemployed and trying to start a new business, but it takes time. Right now, he's living off his savings because both he and Linda lost their jobs. I told him I needed time to think about it. I moved into my own place to enjoy my freedom, and now I'm not sure if I want to share my space with them. Their move into my place disrupted my personal comfort. My father assured me that they wouldn't interfere with my life and that I could continue living as I wanted. I discussed it with my mom and she said the decision was mine to make. She's not a vindictive person. She simply told me that I was old enough to make such decisions on my own. I want to help my father, but I don't know what to expect from this woman. I'm just confused. My dad has always been caring and loving, and I feel terrible for refusing him, especially when he's going through a tough time. I'd really appreciate it if anyone could share their experience in a similar situation. So feel free to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. And now, let's move on to an update. Hey everyone, let me pick up where I left off. After much thought and discussion, I agreed to let my father and Linda stay at my place. My dad told me they would move in after their wedding. I assumed it would be a modest ceremony since it was the second marriage for both of them. But no, they threw an extravagant celebration and then went on a luxurious honeymoon. I couldn't help but wonder where they got the money for all that, but I figured it wasn't my business. It's been a couple of months since they moved in. As I mentioned before, Linda is a single mother to a 5-year-old girl who is like a miniature version of her. She runs around the house, making a mess. And no, she's not the cute little kid you might be imagining. She's spoiled and demands everything she sees. If she doesn't get it, she breaks things. My father still hasn't launched his business. He's looking for investors and trying to convince them to invest. Meanwhile, Linda isn't even bothering to look for a job. It seems like she's perfectly comfortable living off my dad. She has guests over almost every day, sometimes family, sometimes friends, and sometimes random people she met at the supermarket. Basically, she's one of those women who call themselves the life of the party, but in reality, all they do is sit on the couch and gossip about everyone. Maybe some people are fine with that, but to me it's strange to see someone do absolutely nothing all day. I've never seen my mom just lounging around with no purpose. Even on weekends she worked while everyone else was asleep. I don't know if my father ever told Linda about his financial situation. Judging by her lifestyle, you'd think he had no money problems. Either he never told her the truth, or he lied to me. The first option seems more likely because I witnessed my parents' divorce and know that my mom got the larger share of their assets. This woman needs to understand that my father doesn't have unlimited money, and if she wants to live a decent life, it's time for her to start doing something about it. However, that's not really important to me right now because I'm insanely happy. I met Alice. She's 23, a vlogger though not particularly famous yet. I can't reveal her identity, but I've completely lost my head over her. I had been a fan of her work for a long time, and recently, she hired me to edit her videos. We've never met in person, all our conversations have been over video calls. It sounds like a classic romance story, but yeah, I fell for her while editing her footage. She's amazing in her travel vlogs, but what captivated me the most were her raw, unedited clips. Alright, enough admiration, back to the point. After a lot of thinking, I finally asked her to meet up last month. It wasn't exactly a date, more of a work meeting. In real life, she was even more beautiful. She immediately sensed that I had feelings for her and, to my joy, she felt the same way. Since then we've been seeing each other regularly, and I really hope things work out between us. We usually spend time at her place. She lives with her teenage younger sister, 2 dogs and 3 cats. She and her sister inherited the house from their grandfather. Their parents divorced long ago and built new families, so they had been living with their grandfather until he passed away 4 years ago. Since then, Alice became her sister's guardian. So even if my house were empty, Alice wouldn't be moving in with me. I just hope my father finally gets his business up and running so they can move out. Linda and her daughter don't bother me too much, but lately Linda has been crossing the line. Twice already, she's made comments about my lifestyle, but I shut her down immediately. I'm not the kind of person who lets anyone make rules in my own home. If she tries again, I won't hesitate to put her in her place. Update #2. Hey guys, today marks exactly a year since my last update. A lot has happened, so get ready. First off, I'm engaged. Yeah, last week, I got down on one knee and proposed to Alice. Some might think it's a rushed decision, but I've been sure about her from the moment we met. Now, about the situation at home, it's bad. Linda is just a nightmare. I won't blame her entirely, because I think my dad misled her about his financial situation, feeding her narcissism. For the first few months, she left me alone, though she always had guests over. That didn't really bother me. But over time, Linda started overstepping boundaries. First, she commented on how messy my room was and told me I should do laundry more often. Like, what? Even my own mom never interfered with my personal life, and I've been living how I want since childhood. At first I ignored her remarks, but when she started nagging me daily, I had to talk to my dad. I told him privately that he needed to rein in his Linda. He apologized for her behavior, and asked her not to interfere in my life. Obviously Linda didn't like that I complained about her, but at the time, she didn't do anything. A few months later, my dad had to travel to San Francisco for a business meeting with investors. Linda saw this as an opportunity to set her own rules. She started giving me orders: wash the dishes, do the laundry, mow the lawn. Naturally, I ignored her. I cooked for myself, washed my dishes, and did my laundry when I felt like it. This is my house, and nobody tells me how to live here. My indifference pissed her off, and one day, she just exploded. She started yelling that I was a lazy bum living off my dad and doing nothing. Seriously, this woman has no idea about reality. She actually thinks I'm living in my father's house, mooching off him, when in reality, it's the other way around. The thing is, I work from home, but Linda apparently thinks I just waste time on the internet, or play games on my laptop all day. I wanted to tell her the truth to her face, but I wasn't sure what my dad had told her. I was afraid that if I revealed everything, it would ruin their relationship. So I decided to let her live in her fantasy world until my father returned. I didn't want to bother him when he was already stressed about his investors. As if Linda wasn't enough, her daughter became my second headache. She's getting worse by the day, constantly ripping down curtains, messing with my electronics, breaking things, and Linda doesn't even try to discipline her. For the month that my dad was away, Linda tested my patience every single day. She kept demanding that I clean, wash, and do chores. Of course I ignored her, but her constant whining was getting on my nerves. I started avoiding the living room just to not see her. But then she began knocking on my door, demanding that I do what she said. I was basically under house arrest in my own home. When my dad finally came back, I immediately talked to him about Linda's behavior. I told him I couldn't live with her anymore. Either she gets her act together, or she leaves. And that's when he dropped the bombshell. Linda is pregnant, 3 months in. And according to him, it's the hormones making her unbearable. Funny, considering he divorced my mom because of her hormonal mood swings during menopause. I wonder how he plans to deal with Linda now. I wanted to kick her out right away, but my dad begged me to give him a few more months to sort things out. I told him that I was getting married to Alice, and would need my own space soon. At the time I hadn't proposed yet, but I was already planning to. Dad assured me that his business would start making money in 6 months, and that he'd be able to move out. I asked him if he ever told Linda that the house belonged to me, because she was acting like she ran the place. He didn't answer, just changed the subject. Looks like he never told her the truth, and doesn't plan to. I really don't know what he sees in this woman. He's risking everything for her. Right now, I spend most of my time at Alice's place, and it's made things much easier for me. But I dream of the day when Linda finally leaves my house. Third update. Linda is simply relentless. I told her that I proposed to Alice, and planned to get married in a few months, but it seems like Linda has made it her mission to turn my life into a nightmare. Just a month after our engagement, she caused me trouble. Normally Alice doesn't visit my house, but this time I was sick with a fever. I was so ill that I couldn't even lift my head. Alice knew about the situation in my family, but not the details. For example, she didn't know that Linda considers my house to be her own. I'm not a fan of gossip, so I avoid unnecessary talk. Alice stayed with me for a few days to take care of me. Linda used this opportunity to turn Alice against me. She told Alice that I'm a lazy good-for-nothing who does nothing. Alice knows about my profession and income, so she defended me. Then Linda changed her approach. She claimed that the problem wasn't just money, but that a man should help his wife around the house, and I supposedly don't lift a finger. She said that Linda cooks and cleans for me. She also claimed I had a patriarchal upbringing, because my father never helped either. Even though she is pregnant, Alice isn't after money, but it's important for her that a man helps around the house and doesn't turn her into a free maid. For men this might sound silly, but for women, it can be a serious issue. But Linda didn't stop there. She claimed that cheating runs in my blood, just like my father, who left my mother for another woman. Then she lied, saying I had already cheated on Alice and brought other women into the house. Alice asked for clarification about which women she was referring to, and when Linda described them, Alice said they were just my friends and colleagues. But Linda insisted she saw me having fun with them. Absolute nonsense. I was too sick to notice any changes in Alice's behavior. The next day Alice went home. I recovered a week later and went to see her. She seemed uncertain and was questioning whether we should continue our relationship. When I asked what had happened, she said we might be rushing things. I immediately realized it was because of Linda, because Alice isn't the type to doubt her decisions. She had agreed to my proposal right away, and it was a well-thought-out decision. I asked her directly if Linda had spoken to her. At first she didn't want to admit it, but when I insisted, she told me everything. I explained to Alice that Linda is a toxic person who lives in illusions about my father's financial situation. The problem for Alice wasn't money, but that she needs a partner, not someone who will take advantage of her care. I realized the damage had already been done, and the more I tried to convince her, the more she would distance herself. I decided to give her time, but I knew I had to get rid of the poison in my life, and that poison was Linda. I came home and gave Linda a piece of my mind for everything she said about me to Alice. She just smiled and said I told her the truth. Furious, I stormed into her room and started throwing her things into the living room. She immediately started yelling at me, threatening to call the police and tell my father everything. I yelled back that I didn't care. She could do whatever she wanted. She screamed that this was her house, and that I had no right to kick her out. I laughed in her face and shattered her illusions, telling her that this house belongs to me, and that my father begged me to let her live here. I advised her to shut up and pack her things. She tried to grab me by the collar, but I broke free and warned her not to ever touch me again. A few minutes later, my father arrived. Apparently she called him. As soon as I started throwing her things out, my father grabbed me and tried to calm me down, but I didn't feel sorry for him, and told him he made a huge mistake by getting involved with this woman. Linda expected him to yell at me, but he shouted at her to shut up. She demanded that he kick me out, and in the end he had to tell her the truth. The house really belongs to me. Linda was shocked and started accusing my father of being a liar. My father pulled me aside and began begging me to give Linda one last chance. I said no way. She tried to ruin my life by breaking up my relationship, and I won't let her stay. I didn't hold back and told her, "You can take your wherever you want. I'm not letting her turn my house into a brothel." My father gave in, packed their things, and left. All this time, Linda was cursing me, my father, and even my mother. I had a strong urge to go out and hit her, but I didn't want to cause even more problems. A week passed since they left. Yes, it felt good to put Linda in her place, but my conflict with my father had now completely destroyed our relationship. I know I went too far with the insults, but I hope my father understands that Alice is more important to me. Linda tried to separate us. The next day I went to my mom and told her everything. She laughed so hard, sipping her wine. She invited Alice for dinner and eased her doubts about the patriarchal upbringing in our family. My mom's story convinced Alice because she was telling the truth. Even though they divorced, my father always respected my mother. Mom never imposes her opinion, but she speaks so confidently that it's hard not to believe her. She advised me to give Alice some space and not pressure her. I hope everything works out because she is still wearing my ring on her finger. Mom said that soon Linda will start her hunt for men again, when she realizes that my father has no money. Linda really does go from one rich man to another. I don't know what my father's situation is now, and I no longer feel sorry for him. He made his own choice, and it was a mistake. Well, now let's move on to the next story. But for now, write your opinion on this. Personally, I thought everything was obvious from the very beginning that it was all going to fall apart. Yes, theoretically, everything could have worked out much better, but somehow I never believed in it from the start. I think my mother knew that it would turn out like this. But why did she tell her son to make the decision himself? I think it's not because she didn't understand how it would end sadly, but simply because she wanted him to learn the lesson. Not only did he learn a life lesson, but she also didn't ruin her relationship with him. She gave him the chance to choose. It was very important to the author that his mother considered him an adult. That's how parents should treat their children, especially when the woman was involved in business and was well off. This is her method of parenting, and it's the right one. This once again proves that